All right, we will call this meeting to order. This is the City of Buckeye Council Workshop for February 17th, 2026. We start with the roll call, please.
Councilmember Yonker is absent. Councilmember Berry.
Here.
Councilmember Hagestad.
Here.
Councilmember Beard is absent. Councilmember Hustis.
Here.
Vice Mayor Goodman.
Present.
Mayor Westborn.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. Workshop items, item 2A, presentation and discussion of the city's capital improvement program. We have about an hour to talk through this. We'll be led by Mr. James Shannon. Hello, Jim.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. Welcome. Thank you for your time this evening. We are going to talk a little bit about the capital improvement program and kind of the last couple of years of history of where it's gone and the program where we're at and what we got coming forward. So with that, we appreciate it. I'm going to cover part of it, and then I'll turn over to Riley for some of the project-specific items as we go through it. Kind of the agenda this evening, I'll talk a little bit about the timeline, as I mentioned, about the last 24 months of time that we've done here of getting through the program and where it started, kind of looking at bringing in a consultant and redoing the program and then where we're at today. Kind of talk a little bit about what the PMO is and who we are, a little bit about the CIP evaluation process that was done, a recap of that process and the changes that have happened, and then also touch on some continuous improvement items, some financial performance, cost recovery, ordinance that we'll be bringing forward, and then also some Sensei IQ of the reporting and the dashboard functions of the overall program. And then I'll turn over to Riley, and he's going to kind of touch on a lot of the projects, so some of the highlights of some of the existing projects, some recently completed ones, some that are in the warranty phase, and then we'll talk specifically about the bond projects, and then we also have a report for you at the very end. So that'll be our agenda for this evening. Kind of the timeline, so April 2024, a couple of years ago, coming up here in April, the city had LJA Engineering come in and engage to support an evaluation of the CIP process. And really what that was to evaluate the process, to develop and then implement a new process going forward. January 2025, LJA delivered that project development guidelines, and it was really to standardize that CIP process and planning process going forward. A couple months later, March of 25, the Program Management Office was formally established, so coming up on a year now next month. The department would have been in place for a year. April 2025, we did have a city council workshop that kind of helped providing the overview of that process and what it would look like. So today's kind of a continuation of that and where the program's gone. And then present day is kind of talking about where we're at today, the continuous improvement items, and our CIP and implementation of that Sensei IQ, which is kind of that dashboard and reporting process. So who we are, the Program Management Office. It's these four vital programs that exist within the PMO. You got transportation program, the real estate program, there's an administrative function, and then also the capital improvement program, which is what we're here tonight to kind of talk about. And together these programs form the foundation of what our efforts are. You know, safe and efficient roads, infrastructure responsive to needs, and that we are strategically manage that smart growth with our land assets. When we kind of developed the department last year, we took on a strategic planning effort. And one of the first things we wanted to do was kind of define what our vision, mission, and goals were. And so vision was deliver a safe, efficient, sustainable infrastructure that enhance the quality of life for our current and future generations. And then our mission was that drive that collaboration and innovation to plan and deliver these projects as efficiently and sustainable as we can. And then at the heart of everything we do, you know, the city does have 6 different values we thought it was important to kind of take a couple of values and really entrench what we were doing. And one was, since it was a new department that had just been created about a year ago, it was really embrace the new, right? It's a new department, new things are happening, we want to embrace the new. And then with that coming about and trying to figure out how to deliver these bond projects and all these projects, we wanted to also find a way. How do we get this done and embrace the new that was going on? So we wanted to kind of embrace a couple of values, but there are 6 that are important to the city as a whole. So the first part of the process I mentioned, you might have seen this about a year ago when we did the council process, but it was really that CIP evaluation process. It really needed clear definition and processes of ownership for how projects got through the system. There was a strong interest in standardizing the forms and the workflows and how we did the projects, and then identifying the resources that were necessary to support the GO bond projects. Got a bond passed, and it was now we got to deliver on these projects. A big part of this process was looking at the planning and the closeout portions of it, and really how we executed those programs and projects. But it was also kind of the life cycle in between had been done, a lot of the design and construction phase. We were really trying to get that planning and closeout phase to get that entire life cycle laid out. Some of the feedback that we received from some of the different departments was, you know, they wanted to know what the transparency was, their schedule, their budget, where the projects were, and what the status of it was. So I want to get better communication going. And then, of course, the reporting, right? The internal and external transparency of what is the status of these projects and what's the performance overall of the entire program. So that was kind of the evaluation process. Kind of recap now is the overall process changes. So you've seen this slide before, but it really just talks about, we used to have a process that it was done once a year with the CIP program. You get all the projects delivered in December, and there was a whole bunch of them. Really what this did is starting to do a monthly process where every single month we're meeting with the departments, we're seeing what projects there are that are out there, and if there are projects, they submit a project to the DCM. The DCM really then filters that project to know, yeah, this is something we want to work on, or maybe no, it's not. And then after that, we then take that on and start doing some higher level analysis of those projects for scope, schedule, and budget. And you hear me say that if a PM doesn't know their scope, schedule, budget, they probably don't know their project very well. So those are 3 things that we hone in on to really start defining these projects. That then is taken to a CIP committee approval and ranking process, which really starts to define them a little bit more and determine which projects want to move forward and which ones don't. And then after that, we get into more of a detailed scope, schedule, budget to really define the project and really say, yeah, this is going in our capital program. Then there's a CIP executive committee. There's some financing strategies we're working on with the finance department, and then the council approval. And that process is every single year we do this. And so the idea is to have a draft capital program come with our budget process in March or April as we come forward. And then every year you'll see there kind of the middle, refresh existing projects. Any good capital improvement program is a 5-year. Projects typically start in the 6th year, then you move them forward, and you continue to work those every year to refine that scope, schedule, budget until it gets into the year you're going to work on it. So every year during that process, we're looking at those existing projects in there to make sure the scope, schedule, and budgets are accurate on those as we go forward. So that's kind of the recap of overall process changes. Again, it was an annual drop at one point process, and now we've done it throughout the year, which is kind of matches the budget cycle. Maybe just some of the continuous improvement items now when you look at some of the financial performance. Back in fiscal year 24, when we came in and took over the program, the actuals versus the budget amount was about a 26% expenditure rate. So that was the actuals and the encumbrances. There was goals set in the overall process that LGA delivered to try in FY25, get that up to 40%, 26 we want to get to 60%, and then 27 plus we want to get to 80%. In other words, if we're asking for the money, we want to be able to get these done and get it spent like we indicated that we would. So we had a goal of 40, 60, and 80%. FY25 numbers came in and the actual was about at 70%. So we saw about a 3-time for the prior fiscal year of what our actuals and expenditures were. So seen some really good work in the program, and I think you'll see when Robbie comes by some of the completed projects that we've seen. So we actually exceeded the goal for 25. When FY26 numbers are complete, we'll see what those goals are. But our idea is to try to get to 80% plus of what we've got in the budget that we're going to spend on an annual basis to keep those projects going and keep them moving.
So, Jim, just to nail that point home, in fiscal year 24, we had, I don't know what the total.
So it was about $82 million, and we spent about 20.
Right. Yeah, $82 million worth of projects that we said go on. Funding was there, ready-go type projects, and we only spent $20 million of the $80 million that was allocated.
That's correct.
And we're up to 70% this year, or last year,
That's
this
correct.
year.
So we had 120 million and we got to about 80 million.
Yeah,
give or take.
that's fantastic.
And we knew coming in, that's why we set them at 40, 60, 80, was just, we knew coming in it's going to take time to catch up with. These are 2 and 3 year projects, so sometimes it takes a little bit of time to catch up with that. But we saw significant improvements. There was actually a lot of low-lying fruit, that was out there that we could get these things going and really start seeing some things come to fruition.
Awesome.
So, just to tag on to that, is the money that's budgeted what's anticipated to be spent during that fiscal year, or is it a project total? So if we had, say, a 5-year project with $50 million, we look at 10 each year that feeds into this, or 50 total?
So we would be looking at the actual fiscal year and what money was in that fiscal year. So if it was 50 million, we'd have looked at the 10 in that year.
Okay. That's what I
Because
thought.
we hadn't got to
That's
those
what I
future years
clarified.
yet, yeah. So we're looking at the actual fiscal year money that's allocated. Great question, thank you. Any others? Okay. Kind of the next continuous improvement item that we're working on. So this used to be called a Scallop Street Ordinance. We're working with our attorney's office right now to kind of rename it to a cost recovery ordinance. But really what this is, the core policy objective here is that it establishes a clear, defensible cost recovery framework when the city advances street improvements ahead of adjacent development. So, for example, we did Miller Road, some vacant land adjacent to those improvements that we would do. We're building those half-street improvements, and the idea is that we would go back and put a cost recovery on that parcel when that developer comes in and develop those parcels. That way the money that the city spent to build their required half-street improvements, we can now recoup some of that money and then use it for future projects going forward. So that's really the gist of this, is that cost recovery ordinance and how we recover some of those improvements that we do ahead of development. And so we're working on that now. We probably have a workshop coming up with you early April to come and bring this forward and talk about what the new ordinance looks like. And we're just trying to be more efficient with it and make it more user-friendly for everybody. So that'll be coming forward as well to you.
And that cost recovery can happen, I guess, one of 2 ways. There's probably a lot of other ways. It's either this ordinance where essentially there's a lien or something like that on the property that pays us back for the half-street improvements, or some sort of a development agreement where we're engaging with the entity that owns the land. Probably still put a lien on it, because if you change entities' ownership of the land, then it might make things a little bit muddy, but likely a more friendly way to recover some of those costs coming out of these properties.
Yeah, absolutely, Mayor. You're exactly right. There is a couple different ways. The other way, the fee in lieu you talked about, when we're working with them ahead of time, if they're going forward with it and they pay their fee in lieu,
Yeah.
then what we would do is probably not put a cost recovery on their parcel. We would then take their money and use that to help build that capital program. So we do have some of those that we're working with, Verada and Hume as one example. But then there are, when we go forward and they don't want to participate early on and don't want to pay the money, then we would build it and then put the assessment on their parcel to pay when they do come forward to pull a permit.
Okay.
So you're exactly right. There's a few different ways we're collecting on these parcels. And then the last one that I got for continuous improvement is Sensei IQ. And so Sensei IQ is a platform that we have chosen to kind of be the project management tool, if you will, and really just giving us that real-time visibility into the program for performance and KPIs. So there's a couple of dashboards over there on the right, some pictures of what we're working on. Our IT group has been fantastic on helping us put these dashboards together. But the idea is to start looking at the program especially from a schedule and budget standpoint. Where's the money going, and when is it supposed to go somewhere, and where are they in the different stages of those projects? So this is kind of going to be a great visibility tool, a good dashboard to go and look at, and that we can give people access to, and they go look at and get information about projects. And then when you want specific details, of course, you reach out, we can give you any of those. It's going to give you interactive drill downs by department, project, geography, that we can then go in and look at these different ways. Automated reporting, one of the things we've been doing is there's a lot of reporting and a lot of different ways of reporting. And so we noticed ourselves spending time on 5 or 6 different reports, when if we can really get Sensei up and running and really get that dashboard reporting, I hope that's, my IT guys used to always like to tell me that it's one place of truth. All the information goes in there, that's the truth of where everything's at, and that's what we're going to utilize it for. So I think this is going to be a great tool for us. Reduces that manual entry and improves that accuracy. And then this is also, like I mentioned, a Microsoft platform, which means it's relatively scalable for moving forward. If Microsoft stays in business, then this would also keep going forward. But it's a Microsoft platform, uses all the different Microsoft tools embedded in it, and then our IT department's been great at configuring these and getting it ready for us. So a great tool for us. We're getting down the path of getting this ready to go and get it out there, and hopefully in the next month or 2 we should have something to start showing. So some good stuff.
Is that just for internal use, or would council or even the public have access to see what's happening?
I don't know if we want to give you access to it. Yeah, the idea would be is that initially we're going to use it for internal use and then continuous improvement, right? Looking at how we then get it out to others. And then of course public facing would be great, because we're doing some public facing reporting anyway, so this will be one way just to make it one place that we can do it all. So that is the goal.
Okay.
And with that, I think we're getting to the project highlights piece, which Riley's going to cover. Any other questions or comments on what we've covered so far? Riley's going to get all the good questions.
All the hard-hitting questions.
That's right.
We'll hammer Riley.
That's right.
All right, well, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. Pleasure to be here tonight. Thanks for being here. And as Jim discussed, those are a lot of the improvements that we've been doing over the last year or 2 years. And really, what I kind of want to talk through here is really where the rubber meets the road, right? What does that mean for the projects we're working on, some of the projects that we've completed, and then after that, we'll go into some of the geo bond projects, because that's an important topic for us, make sure we get those metrics. But in the near term, really starting with public safety and the 2 fire stations and public safety headquarters and training facilities. You've got Fire Station 706, which is a single-story battalion headquarters, larger 4-bay station, currently in design right now with construction funded as part of the first raise. We did get land dedicated to us as part of a development agreement, and there's some off-site utility connections as a part of this. You'll see the increased cost between 706 and 709 because that is a battalion headquarters and the increased square footage associated with that. Transitioning over to 709, which you see the rendering there, a nice at-night type rendering, really a beautiful look of what that fire station will look like. It's going to be a 2-story fire station off of Indian School and Acacia, roughly on that northwest corner there. In design, a little bit further ahead of 706, and should get construction here started sometime this year as well. That land was also dedicated as part of the D&D development, about an 1.5 acre site, which is why it's a 2-story fire station. Transitioning over to the public safety headquarters and training facilities. Really at this point, what we funded as part of the first raise is kind of the planning, and depending on how that planning shakes out is some dollars for potentially design and land as well. Between those 2 projects, we have about $6 million in the first raise. Really, it's a funnel, right? We're trying to figure out, really, we have an idea of what we need and what we want, and refining the land opportunities that we have and making the most out of the dry powder that the residents have awarded the city as part of the geo bond. So we're somewhere in the middle of that funnel, and I anticipate as we refine our planning, we'd move forward into design and potential land acquisition. My computer is this one right here. Really, a couple road highlights here. Hot off the press, we've got, as you know, McDowell opened up yesterday. You'll see in the exhibit here, really what we want to look at is how do we unlock corridors and really relinquish a lot of the pinch points. And so, in that Jackrabbit corridor, we've got about $200 million of investment. And that's between the city of Buckeye, the city of Goodyear, and Arizona Department of Transportation, and looking at who's doing what, when we're doing it, and making sure that we can get east, west, north, south as best we can. Now, I will say, after we finish McDowell, we are moving to Jackrabbit, and, you know, if you can avoid Jackrabbit for a period of time, it's gonna be under construction more times than not for the next year plus. But, you know, and we'll do our best to mitigate some of those challenges. But as it relates to these projects up here, Jackrabbit from McDowell to Thomas is the ultimate cross-section, including the intersections at McDowell and Thomas. We've got an extension further up as part of the GEO bond to go all the way to Indian School, and we've also got an Indian School project from Jackrabbit to Perryville, at which point Goodyear actually picks up at the intersection of Indian School and Perryville and goes all the way east to the 303. We're working on some of those coordination items and refining that. I would say a big win there. So, and then working on to our communication towers, really in cooperation with the regional wireless collective. There was a couple towers that were annotated on the west side of the white tanks, 3 in particular. And what we found is, looking at the heat map, if you will, that instead of having 3 towers, we could actually have 2 towers of increased height, and we could hit the same area, kind of in that north of the 10, west of the white tanks. And what we did as part of some lessons learned from our Jackrabbit Tower was streamline the construction such that we're going to see, I believe, some significant savings as it relates to construction. So a win with less towers and also more efficient towers, but kudos to our team of project managers who are leading that.
Riley, can I back you up on the Indian School Jackrabbit to Perryville?
Yes, sir.
I think that's in as a full width, all the gingerbread, everything that comes along with that roadway. I'm not looking to get rid of lane miles, I think is the term I keep using. It's maximizing the amount of lane miles we can in different areas throughout the community. Is that section right there, sidewalk, landscape, curb, most of which is, or I guess half of that is built from the canal to the east of Perryville.
That's correct.
Are we contemplating doing the exact same thing on the south side from the canal to Perryville? And if so, does it make sense to have the landscape, sidewalk and all of that on that side of the road, tying today to nothing down that way?
You know, Mayor, it's a good question. The work that was done with Fulton Homes on the north side, as you referenced in there, was done to county standards. I would anticipate, as we look at squeezing what we need to in that right-of-way, that we're going to be looking at some form of a modified cross-section, and that what we end up putting in there as we advance our DCR and that becomes final, that a lot of those cross-sections are going to be shrunk. And so really, by nature of what we can fit in what's a truncated area, there's going to be more lane miles and less gingerbread, really by function of what we are allowed to do in that area.
Yeah, I like that. And then we can take whatever we don't need in areas like that and put it towards other areas throughout the city, increasing some of the lane miles or the pinch points that we have. Just making those dollars go further.
That's correct. And I will say that's the right mindset that we have there. For this project in particular, I'd be wary of declaring some form of savings early on. There's certainly a lot of infrastructure in the area that we got to be mindful of with irrigation districts and wells and so on, but we'll certainly maintain that theory.
Okay. Thank you.
Please have questions throughout. Transitioning over to Verado and Yuma, this is a project that is in design currently with construction funded as part of the first raise. We're starting with the intersection of Verado and Yuma, expanding to the ultimate intersection, and then adding 2 lanes, one in either direction on Verado Way from Yuma all the way north to Van Buren. We're currently navigating the complexities of that intersection for what's going to be requiring to raise that intersection and coordinating with the school to the south and making sure we can be good stewards, being good stewards of taxpayer money while being cognizant of the public impact there at that intersection. Transitioning over to Rooks Road, which is construction of a bridge at the BWCDD Canal, an ultimate bridge, and an interim half-street improvements, as well as advancing a water line as part of the integrated water master plan. That's a project that's currently under construction right now. I'd anticipate finishing this summer. Down to the last project, obviously.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I keep interrupting, I'm sorry. Just when you get your groove going, throw out wrenches.
Okay.
Brooks Road Bridge, that's not just the bridge, but it's half-street improvements connecting baseline to MC 85.
You know, Mayor, we're actually stopping just short of baseline. We're connecting just north of where the old core access point would have been, and finishing at that point. We are anticipating as development comes in just east of that we'd be able to, and those half-street improvements are done, that we could connect as a part of that. And then as part of the out years in the CIP, advancing the intersection at Baseline and Rooks, which will take some time for crossing the rail as well. Okay. So there's, I won't bore you with the complexities, but it'll take quite a bit of time to do that design, and I would anticipate that being funded before the 5th year of this CIP.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Question. Transitioning down to Hawk, which is a high-intensity activated crosswalk traditionally used in between traffic signals at sort of a mid-block crossing to activate multimodal pedestrian access. In this case, at the downtown off of 9th and then Yonker High School. We're finishing up design and anticipating construction by this summer timeframe. Councilmember Eustis.
Yes. Yep.
You're speaking of the one right down the street here
Yes, sir.
that I can't see because the light is only about that big.
Yes, sir.
And you're putting young citizens across that street. Can't we put some kind of a larger light, at least the size of the one that's further down the street? Because that light is very difficult to see, especially when the sun's coming up or going down. And that light is about that size, if I'm not mistaken, maybe this size, and you just cannot see that thing. And a stranger driving down there is not aware of the fact there might be kids crossing that street, will not see that sign. I don't know how close people have come down there. I've seen several of them down there going close to hitting citizens walking across that street.
Councilmember Houston, I'm glad you brought that up. The hawk that you see at that intersection right now is actually an interim hawk. The hawk that we are installing is a little bit more similar to what you see at the rendering on the bottom right of this screen here, where it's elevated and the lights span the cross-section of the roadway. And we've actually, as part of the study, analyzed the sight distance as you're going south and westbound on Monroe, and it passes all of MUTCD standards and then some. So we're confident that when that is installed, which we have not begun construction yet, that it will alleviate some of those concerns.
So the one that's out there will be taken down.
Okay.
It'll
Very
be,
good.
yeah, it'll be a new one that'll have much more visibility.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Question?
Transitioning over to really what's a couple CIP projects articulated as a gateway enhancement program. As part of the Buckeye arterial gateway guide that was passed by DSD 2 or 3 years ago, it essentially incorporates enhanced landscaping. Now the enhanced landscaping is mapped throughout the entire city and will be constructed as roads get improved by either the city or private development. This program is identified to address high priority areas that have already been developed, but not necessarily the gateway standards. And so what that means is monumentation, enhanced plantings, knee wall, metal art, that would really beautify Buckeye for the folks in the near term when they're entering really off I-10. And we're focusing on Barado Way and Roosevelt first, going to Watson and Miller, Jackrabbit, Sun Valley Parkway, and we're going to continue to advance that as we go further on to the 5-year funded CIP. As it pertains to Verado and Roosevelt, we have a construction contract in place right now, and we're anticipating really seeing dirt moving here in a short period of time with Watson and Miller construction funding starting this summer. Sun Valley Parkway lighting is a geobond project for primarily median lighting from I-10 all the way through to the entrance of Tartesso. It's currently in design right now, and we anticipate construction funding this summer, for construction to start as soon as this summer. We are currently working through IGA and maintenance as it pertains to the county, and once that's complete, then we'll be advancing our design to the final step. Miller Road, Broadway to Lower Buckeye. This is, again, part of a CI, part of the GO bond that really, we've got the ultimate improvements from Broadway to Lower Buckeye, and we're also addressing the Werner signal as a part of that, and access throughout. We're getting MAG funding in 28 timeframe to the tune of about $6.5 million, and we're going to be matching that, more likely than not, with second raise bond funding, so that we can capture that MAG contribution and construct the ultimate roadway. And really the next step I wanted to do was touch on just a few of the completed projects and some of the projects in warranty, which are, depending on the project, a year or two from completion. But as it pertains to the recently completed projects, you got McDowell, which I guess I spoiled at the beginning, opened yesterday. We are still finishing some of the punch list items, but that is open for the public to traverse, and a great win for unlocking some of the much needed congestion in the area. And then really the two Miller Road projects, we finished Miller Road from I-10 south all the way down to Lower Buckeye, and then with an interim solution to unlock true lane miles from Lower Buckeye all the way down through Southern with some temporary pavements. This project completed towards the end of last year, beginning of this year, and really doubled the capacity for the most part along Miller in that corridor.
If I could give a little plug to our transportation department on that Miller corridor too. Just found out today they've now put 3 timing plans in place from I-10 all the way to Southern. So they got an AM, a PM, and a midday timing plan for that entire corridor. And all those signals are now in our transportation management center. So now they've got timing plans for AM, PM, and traffic during the midday. So we should see traffic moving much better through there and get the timing plans in place with getting our signals connected. So that's also another plug for those projects getting done, and we can start getting the timing done with the signals going forward.
You said that's on the Miller Road corridor?
That's on the Miller Road corridor, yes, sir. So if you drive the speed limit down through, you should be able to catch some of them.
There's a speed limit?
Let me get that, Bob.
Very good, it's a good point, and that complements really Southern Apache is just an example of one of the many signals we've installed, north of 10 signals in the recent period of time that, as Jim's talking about, working on connecting as part of the smart system where, you know, you look at east, west, north, south, how we get most efficiently at different times of day from one side to the other. Southern Apache is an intersection that we have connected to part of that system. And then transitioning over to some of the projects that are a little bit further out, they've been completed for a period of time. You'll recognize the Communications Center, Fire Station 707, Veterans Memorial, Sundance Park. These projects, part of the CIP, once we finish, there's either a year or two warranty period that the Capital Improvement Program or the Program Management Office manages, at which point, upon final assumption and closeout, transitions over to full city ownership, and the contractor is relieved of all of their duties for the most part. And then really I wanted to close out my component here with some of the bond projects. Some of these you've already heard discussed, but this is just the bond projects that are identified as part of the funding as part of the first raise. Specifically the first 6 or 7 are pinch point removal projects, top 4 of which I would anticipate, the top 3 of which I would anticipate construction in the first raise, and the bottom 4 of those pinch points I'd anticipate construction in the second raise. Sun Valley Parkway lighting construction as part of this first raise. Transitioning over to the public safety sector, we've got the design and construction for both fire stations funded and then the planning design and land funded for the headquarters and planning facilities. And then rounding out our CIP, or rather our GEO bond, our Public Works teammates, 4 of the projects here, the top 4, have already been completed. The bottom 2, I'd anticipate completion here in a short period of time. And then really just in terms of what progress you would expect in the CIP, the graph that you see there is a projected cash flow of the CIP projects throughout the first raise. And you'll see kind of that first blip, for the most part, is really a lot of design effort. And then as we finish up design and ramp up towards construction, you see a much larger blip. So that time frame is roughly, the end of this calendar year, beginning of next calendar year, that you'll really start to see a lot of dirt moving and progress for the residents. And then, bar no other questions, I'm going to cede my time to Jim, who will be talking about some of the great work that's happening all throughout the rest of the city, and the council report highlighted in different council districts.
So really the last slide we got is just, we've produced the first, this will be your first annual council district report. It's kind of a summary of the CIP progress and impacts to date, kind of highlight the active projects citywide. We've got them broken down by council district in here, so you kind of see the ones that are in your district. As you look through it, there are some projects that span multiple districts, so we put them in one and try to call out the other one, so there might be a little nuances there, but it's really just a communication item that kind of just breaks down all the projects in your different districts. High-level information. If you've got specific comments or questions or more information, please let us know. We're glad to do that. And with that, I will hand these out, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Is that report available electronically?
It can be. It's a PDF. We definitely send it electronically.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Absolutely. With that, Mr. Mayor,
Okay, Councilman Eustace.
I believe we're already doing it, but something I've talked about and seen in other cities, when we're working on a project, a street or something like that, and it's being funded by bonds, to be sure to try to put some kind of a sign that says, this project is because you, the citizens of Buckeye, have, allowed us to do this with a voting for the bond. Some kind of wording to say and let people know that this project is because you voted for it. It's because, thank you very much for allowing us to do this project for you. Some kind of verbiage, get somebody, ladies here that are much better at that than I am. But somewhere letting the citizens know this is where your money is being spent, and thank you for allowing us to do this for you.
Yes, sir. Mayor, Councilman Eustace, yes, sir. We do have a standard sign that we put out on all our city capital improvement projects. So if it's a developer project doing it, you probably wouldn't see it. But if it is one of our city capital dollars that's out there, we do have a project sign out there that's got the project, it's got your bond dollars at work or your tax dollars. It's also got the council, and so it's got information about the project. And so, yes, sir, on every city CIP project, we will have a sign out there that indicates those things.
Thank you.
Sir.
Yeah.
The 4 roads that I guess we're going to be redoing from 4th Street to Miller, when would that take place?
For this work downtown on Miller?
Yeah.
Okay, or on Monroe, sorry about that. Yes, sir. So right now we're finishing up the design of the striping work that's been done.
Oh, no, I meant on this, one of the slides, number 17, I think it was a medicine, and forward one more.
Go the other way.
Yeah, other way.
The spreadsheet you had of the, one more, there.
Yeah, the Easton and the Roosevelt Streets, Miller Road to the 4th Street.
Yes, so I'm looking to see if Amy might be here. It's Public Works is working on that project right now. I believe that's in the same time frame as what we're going to be doing, the potholing and the striping and redoing that down here. They're also working on those roads at that same time. And so I'd imagine that's coming up here in March, April, May time frame. I'd have to check with Amy to make sure those dates are right. But we're trying to coordinate all that together, the work that they're doing and the work that we're doing down here as well.
Is that a full, like, are we going to tear up all the road and pave a new road there, or?
I'd have to get back to you on that, sir, exactly what that includes. I know it includes some of the handicap ramps and making sure those are all good. And then I think there is some surface treatments on it, but I have to verify exactly what that is for you. I'll find that out and get back to you. Go ahead.
Excuse me,
Oh, there she is.
Mayor and Council.
Yes.
Hello, this is Amy. Yes, for the downtown project, we are working in conjunction with the PMO's office to complete reconstruction of Edison, Easton, and Roosevelt streets. These will be complete reconstructions. And the timing is going to start, scheduled to start next month.
Okay, thank you.
Is that, that's obviously the asphalt and base reconstruction, does that include curb, gutter, and sidewalk?
No, that is not part of this project. This project, we are just working on the roadway itself.
Okay,
Thank you, Amy.
okay, yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council?
Yeah. As we have places that we've done payment in lieu, how are we going back and filling those in? Are just waiting for the projects around it to happen? I mean, like for instance, I think the one that's taking care of itself is front of Tractor Supply. I mean, that's part of that whole Miller Road process. But there's other places that there's been payments, 20, 30 years ago that were probably peanuts in today's market for those projects. How are we tackling that, and what's the plan? And even for projects that in our benevolence we did on our own and didn't do our own project half street improvements, like in Jackie Mack Water Campus, that we didn't complete it the way we would have required a private entity to do. What's our plan for those things?
Yeah, so maybe a couple things. The ones that got fee in lieu, as a project comes forward in the capital improvement program, we would go out and try to find out what fee in lieu we've received, so that way we can add that to the project. And then you're exactly right. When you get those dollars in that time frame, when you go to build the project, they're usually not enough to do it because time has passed. So usually we are short trying to get that done, but we do go out and look at those and with our projects to try to incorporate those in with that capital program as we're going forward.
And how does that work? Let's just say, let's use the Jackie Mack Water Campus, because I know they're starting to work on that subdivision that goes right next to it. Are we then piggybacking with them and having them complete it? I mean, what's the most budgetary, the quickest and cheapest way to get it done? Or is it better for us to do our own project? Or just pay them to add on another however many lane feet per mile it is? What's the best way to do that?
I think all those scenarios can work, right? If the developer's coming in to do a piece of street, I think there can be a development agreement done to say, hey, while you're building this, we got a little piece of this, can you do it all? I think it's, when we go in to build a project, we do all of ours with that project. I know with the Jackie Mack Water Campus, and Terry, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the developer has the responsibility to build that entire street. That's why the city didn't do it, because they have that requirement to do it. So when they come in, they would do it. So I think any of those are tools in the toolbox that would be utilized to get these things done, right? If we collect this fee in lieu, then we would incorporate it with our other projects. If a developer's doing it, we're trying to work with them to say, hey, we've got a little piece here, can we also incorporate this into it? And then we just got to make sure we have the funding to do that, right? Because developer comes in, it might not be on the time we want to do it, but.
Okay, you're worried about having the funding to do that. What isn't our responsibility to get it done at that point, though? I mean, figuring out how to find that money to get it done, because we took a fee in lieu based off that time, and it's our fault for waiting.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with the
Right?
fee in lieu, we
No,
would, yes.
We have to,
Yeah.
we have to, use Patrick's words multiple times, but growth pays for growth until it doesn't. I mean, when it doesn't, we have to be prepared and have a plan for those places. Have we identified all of those spots that we've done a fee in lieu and have not done anything, going back however far back we need to go?
I'm not aware of that yet, sir, that we've gone back and looked at all those. I assume there's some tracking that shows all those fees we've gotten, and we just got to incorporate those into the projects as we go forward.
I just don't want to see, we talk about the Scallop Street improvement, but then there's things that we've done that are potentially going to create a problem, where we've taken that fee in lieu and then not done anything. I want to make sure that we have a plan so that when it does happen, this is what we, go along with, based off any other development that's happening in that area. How do we tag on to that development and make it, even because we've taken a lower payment for the project, make it as economical as possible.
Good, thank you. Good comment.
Thank you.
I guess to maybe further that thought, the fee in lieu that we're talking about, there's probably a limited number of projects where we've actually had the opportunity to do that. When we're talking about that today, this is moving forward on some of these pretty significant bond CIP type projects that's the intent is, I guess for instance, could be the stuff that is between Durango, or not Durango, would be Lower Buckeye and Warner on the east side or the west side.
Right.
Both of them are going to be developing, and we're going to be doing a project through there eventually with MAG money. And so the fee in lieu would be, instead of us making them go and do it, they're going to give us the funds to develop those half-street improvements on both sides. That's what we're talking about for that. And there's some probably very limited but specific cases where we have funds that have been pledged up, or it's a bond, or it's some.
Well, Tractor Supply is a good,
Yeah.
in that same area.
Or
we took the fee
Chevron.
for their part, yeah.
Right. And then that gets added into the projects moving forward. But I think the most important part of all this is that there's vacant land that is to be developed, or just vacant land in general, that there is a way for us to capture the improvements that we're making on that property to increase the value at our expense, so that when that developer does come in and do his development, we're getting paid back for what would have been their responsibility.
Correct, and that's for the assessment for the cost recovery of Scalp Street. There are fee in lieus, like I'll give you another example of Verado and Yuma.
Yeah.
We got developer on the southeast and the southwest corner. We are collecting a fee in lieu from those developers, and we're incorporating that into our project. So we're going to get their money and then put that into our project. We're going to do it fairly soon with when we collect it. So that one we won't be short, right? We should be pretty close to what we need to do it. So that's when we get fee in lieu, we're going to build it. But there are some that was fee in lieu from years ago that we got, and it's out there, right? And so as those projects come forward, we'll have to make sure we incorporate those into that.
So you just use the Verado and Yuma as an example, where we're collecting the fee in lieu on their project and moving forward with it. What about the reverse, where it's wiser for us to pay them to do that? Have we done that before? Is there any examples that you know of? Probably asking a big question, and you can't wrap your head around all the information.
Yeah, and I would imagine we have done that in the past, where there's been a developer out there and, hey, we need a piece of this done, can you do this? And we get a development agreement where we pay them so much to do that.
There's
So-
just nothing stopping us from being able to be nimble and do
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
The one thing that we would have to bear in mind then is when we're using city funds to do something like that with a developer, Title 34 would apply, and we'd have to work with the developer to make sure they're following all the state required procurement guidelines.
It's not, let procurement guidelines be a little thing that gets in the way. Doug, such a negative comment.
But there is a.
I emphasize state required.
This is fantastic. Thank you for the recap on stuff that we've gotten complete and a picture showing where we're headed. And the $250 million, that's a staggering amount of infrastructure development that's going to happen, somewhat to the east side, but along I-10, all of that project, I think we're taking into account when we talk about that $250 million. We've talked a little bit about creating a list of projects, or maybe a map that shows not only the city projects that are being or have been developed, but also the private infrastructure, the private funding for public infrastructure that has gone in. And when you take a road like Miller, for instance, from the freeway, and actually you can include parts of the freeway construction, but maybe just to tell the tale of the last, say, 6 years worth of growth that we've seen in the city of Buckeye. I-10 widening, traffic interchanges, Miller Road, including what's been done in front of Five Below and Funco, and the improvements that we have done using city funds on the other side of the street, and then continuing that all the way down to the stuff that Copper Falls has done, the stuff that Fry's has rounded out, and start adding up all of the investment overall that's been made on corridors like that. I think that's a pretty telling number, and it's good for us to have in our hip pocket. Just so when folks are talking about the I guess, return on the investment that the city is making, and then the infrastructure investment that the private developers are making, here's the overall picture on what that is, total dollar value. That's probably approaching $500 million of infrastructure when you're including I know it's not ours, but I-10, the 2 traffic interchanges that are already complete, improvements that are being made on Watson, improvements made on Apache, Miller, Broadway, Jackrabbit, all of these different locations. I think it would be if it's not too much of a task to create a spreadsheet that showed that, or a map that showed that, I think it would be really, really handy.
And Mr. Mayor, we are working on that right now. It's just taking time to go through all the records and pull all the old projects.
Okay, yeah, and I mean, I'm saying that kind of out loud in front of my colleagues in the public, so that we all know something like that is being worked on and brought forward. There's a tremendous amount of money that's been invested in our city.
Yeah, and I think Jim backed up to this one right here with Jackrabbit and McDowell, and that's the state, the city of Goodyear, and then when you put on developers, projects under that, I mean, the amount of money that's being spent on transportation improvements in this city every year is just mind-boggling, and pulling that information together and really getting that story out there of what the city, the developers, and everything is happening in transportation is definitely going to be a great undertaking.
Yeah.
We do have some of these, as Doug mentioned, the corridor maps you see right there on the screen, Jackrabbit projects. We do have those corridor maps we have for Jackrabbit, we have it for Miller, we have it for Watson, we have it for different areas. And so those are, it talks about the existing projects, not some of the ones that in the past that we have done. So I have to add those to it. But you can see in that corridor alone right there is $200 million.
Yeah.
You know, so we start adding up those different corridors of all the way through. There's significant dollars being spent there.
And it's still not enough.
It's still right.
Yeah.
Still can use more. That's
We're
right.
still,
And as we mentioned earlier in this presentation, was kind of what can we physically deliver on?
yeah,
That's the other thing. When we start putting more throughput through the CMP group, well, that starts meaning more for development services and other inspectors and other things, right? That then start meaning more for them. So we also be realistic on what we can deliver on too.
yeah.
Because I don't want that number to be back at 26% again. I want that spending to be up at the 80% plus.
Right.
So we got to be able to deliver on that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what the public is expecting.
Yep.
And maybe one other piggyback on that too is, if you look at a corridor map like this or something similar, this helps us really prioritize going forward. What should our projects be, right? We know what we have going on, maybe what other entities have going on, helps us coordinate, but what's our priority in year 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? And how do we kind of look forward and program that, looking at tools like this of really some of the high trafficked corridors and extending those, and looking at some of the data that we have as part of the traffic management center is really how we prioritize.
Yep. Fantastic presentation, and going back to the projects getting complete, good on you guys for what you're making fly through. We posted up today, so I got to drive it a couple times already. Sometimes legally, sometimes not, that the McDowell Road corridor.
Right.
And just seeing that connectivity that creates, not only vehicles, but now a sidewalk on one side of that road that completely opens that area. With ADOT coming in and doing what they're doing, that's a huge win for the residents in that area. And then commuters getting back and forth if we're jammed up on Broadway at I-10, that's a relief out to get other ways. So we're opening up all these access points, not just in that area up in the Miller Road corridor, and Watson, Apache, that you guys are moving at the rate that you are.
Thank you. There's support from the council in making this, a reality and keep funding it, and fund and build stuff, so we'd love to do it.
Good.
Let me piggyback one more thing and ask about that thing. I don't remember who said it earlier, but, and it was kind of not really an answer. The Sensei IQ, that, if we could get access to that so that we know, so we can answer constituents, that would be, if there's one consistent questions that I get since I've been on council is about road projects and what we're doing with the roadways. So if we can have a place that we can go look at that and have that information in our pocket, like Eric said a minute ago, that would, I would really like to be able to have that.
Okay, absolutely, I think that's possible.
There gonna be anything on that, Sensei, about cows in the roadway?
We could add that in there. We could add that in there, yes.
Thank you.
Cows.
We put that part of the scope, right? How do we handle those?
We offset, it's gonna sell the road,
Yeah, we could make a mint on tomahawks. Okay.
I'll pass it down.
Thank you. All right, item 2B, this is going to be a presentation and discussion of Buckeye Police Department's responsible use of public safety technology.
I'll get rid of Jim. It's easier to hide. I stumbled. Jared. Make sure this works. It's gonna work. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Are we ready to proceed? Thank you for having us today. I'm Bob Sanders, your police chief, and to my left here is Deputy Chief Chuck Pizzaio. We're here to provide a brief overview of technology and how we utilize it in your police department. We do believe that we have a modern and very professional police department. And as I started my last presentation in front of council, I have to take us back in time. So 5 years ago, I presented to council about the technology, and we called it our 2030 Public Safety Plan, and how we were going to responsibly utilize technology to keep a safe community. At that time, we talked about deploying 35 license plate reader cameras. And how I explained it was as a picket fence for this older generation, a white picket fence around the city to control or know who's coming into our city as far as criminals, any criminal activity. We faced it was a dilemma because 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning we were having a gang from Phoenix come out here and commit vehicle burglaries. And they would steal vehicles in Phoenix or Surprise or Peoria, and they'd drive out here to our city and burglarize our citizens. And the two neighborhoods or the parts of the city that hit the most were West Park, Festival, and Tartesso. And because we have a few officers on at that time in the morning, we needed to utilize technology to help us figure out who's coming into our city and respond accordingly. So we deployed those cameras as a picket fence around the city, and we placed cameras at Tartesso and Festival and West Park. And during that time, 5 years ago, I would go to community meetings and discuss why are we deploying this type of technology, basically to utilize technology to keep our community safe. And it proved quite effective because we were one of the first departments in the west side to utilize license plate reader cameras. At that time, they were the flock cameras. And so what would happen, instead of these criminals coming into our city about every 6 weeks, they pretty much stopped coming to our city. Because what would happen is we would either respond to the area and either chase them out, or we'd catch them and arrest them. Or in one case, we had a criminal utilize his uncle's vehicle And we captured the plate at 2, 3 in the morning because not a lot of people are entering festival or Tar Tessel at that time in the morning. And we went out to the uncle's house and figured out who was driving the vehicle the night before. And so it proved quite effective, and that's the responsible use of technology. And so briefly we'll go over our presentation here, but back then we talked about civil liberties, public safety, and how do we protect the privacy of the citizens. Now since 5 years, moving forward to today, there's a lot of social media interaction, a lot of social media influencers, and a lot of postings and emails that we receive, I receive, and council receives, and other city leaders. So this is a good opportunity for us, your police chief and your deputy chief, to explain to you how we use technology. I can only explain how we use it in Buckeye. I am not an expert in any other city. We incorporate policies and procedures to protect our citizens, their public safety, and their privacy. And we also have accountability, safeguards, and guardrails built into our system. And so briefly, the responsible use of technology. It's 3 pillars. It's public safety, privacy, civil liberties, and accountability. The accountability piece comes into play with our internal policies and procedures. I attached a couple of those policies to the council workshop for the public to see. The advantage of using technology is the workforce multiplier. It helps us keep our community safe. We have ongoing training. And what we are using technology now is nothing more than we were doing before. The difference is we have more eyes on the road. We can see who's coming into our city as far as criminal activity. We don't watch people who are coming in and out of our city to conduct business, go to restaurants, come to soccer games. The be on the lookout is a BOLO, if you have any experience with police law enforcement. A BOLO is something police officers get be on the lookout for. Be on the lookout for a red Ford pickup truck just committed an armed robbery in Goodyear. Well, 20 years ago, we'd have to rely on our eyesight, and hopefully the vehicle would drive by us. Picture yourself 3 in the morning, 8 officers on duty, 640 square miles of a city trying to protect and keep criminals coming into our city and victimizing our citizens. With our cameras in place, we can have eyes and we can be alerted to that vehicle with that license plate. This video we're going to show you right now is what we actually see with one of our traffic cameras. As you'll be able to see as this video goes, this is a shoplifting that occurred over at the Walmart a couple years ago. And I'll get into how we protect the privacy of our citizens. But as you can see, we can't see inside of vehicles. We cannot see who's driving, but we can see somebody if they're out there walking. So the information we capture is just someone who's walking in a public place. As you can see here, our real-time information center operator is guiding the officers in. They see the suspect. And the reason we're showing you this, because in about 30 seconds, you'll see what we do to help protect the privacy of our citizens. He runs across the street. Our officers follow him. Somebody was telling me this was in the summer and maybe it was a little hot. That's why he decided to stop running. As you see in the lower, the pixelation, you can see. So how we have our traffic cameras set up is that we purposely do not want to see into the backyards of citizens. And so we set that with IT's assistance. We set that up automatically so we don't see what's going on in someone's backyard. We're only looking into the public areas of our city. The suspect runs, he sees the officers, and there you see one of our fine officers chasing him down. He decides to give up. But the point of that video was the pixelation. We're not looking into the backyards of our residents. So the technologies that we're utilizing today, of course, our body cameras, license plate readers, our traffic cameras, which you just saw, our city cameras in our buildings and parks, the drones, and drones is a first responder program. And then now we moved 5 years ahead, we're into our 2040 public safety plan. And technology is a key component. Also 5 years ago, and I believe it exists today, is there's a community expectation that we keep the community safe and we utilize technology, as long as we're utilizing it the right, correct, and proper way. So this is protected information. What you see in blue are policies, procedures, requirements, and protection of private information that has existed for decades, and we've always abided by those. As a police department, we have our 2 policies in red, and those were provided to the public and to you, council. Those mirror the requirements of what's in blue. Those are national standards, those are state standards. The Arizona Department of Public Safety comes out and audits our records. They look at our criminal justice records, because everything we utilize our technology for is for criminal justice, law enforcement purposes. Just as I did 5 years ago, we're here to talk about civil rights and privacy concerns. Nothing's changed in the last 5 years. The short retention, we had that currently then, we have it now, is a 30-day retention for our video and our license plate reads. If we do pull information, if we have a specific criminal case that we're investigating, or a missing person or a runaway juvenile, we will pull the information and attach it to our records management system, and then we abide by state law retention records requirements. We restrict our sharing to only law enforcement and criminal justice agencies only. Transparency reports, ever since we contracted with our vendor Flock, we've had this up on our website. It's a transparency portal. It explains how many cameras we have and how many actual searches we have a month. And then, of course, our internal audits. Per our policy, we audit our records, just as we do with any criminal justice record. Either an outside agency or we come in and look at records to determine and verify that our officers and anyone else who has access for criminal justice reasons is using their access appropriately. Again, our number one concern is public safety. We utilize our technology for find stolen vehicles, find missing people, endangered children, endangered adults, human trafficking, violent crime investigations, crime investigations, stalking orders of protection, and officer safety. One of our earliest successes for a stalking was our camera on Miller Road, southbound. Someone had moved out here to Buckeye to get away from an abusive ex. He kept coming into our city, and the camera would pick up his license plate. We didn't know who was driving, but we knew that his car was here in the city because it was entered into our report. What he was doing, he was parking about 3 blocks away in some homes under construction, and he was sneaking over to watch his ex. Officers responded. We put up a bullseye. We eventually found him hiding in a backyard of a building and a home under construction. Did we prevent something more serious? We don't know, but we did prevent something else from occurring. The reason you see the missing person and Nancy Guthrie slide up there, the photo, is because 2 weeks ago, Pima County Sheriff's Office asked us if they could have permission to look into our logs, our audit logs. And of course, we granted them permission because they're a law enforcement agency, they have a missing person. And that's how we restrict and we make sure we have guardrails and safeguards into what information anyone that has access to. The talk of the town and social media is, of course, the Flock cameras, our LPR cameras. They only capture license plates. They only capture vehicle colors. They can capture if a vehicle or a truck has a roof, not a roof, but a ladder on top of the roof. There is zero facial recognition, and there's no personal data collected. We cannot see inside the vehicle. These type of cameras are very useful when it comes to finding people either through amber alerts, safe alerts, blue alerts, or turquoise alerts. And so when we receive an alert from a license plate, either the officers who are researching it or our dispatch center will research it to determine if it's a valid hit. Because sometimes the cameras and the plate reads are not exactly clear. So before we would stop a vehicle, we make sure it matches what the alert is about, either through the vehicle make, model, or color. How we protect our data, Buckeye Police. That's law enforcement only. Yes, sir.
Can I ask you a question on that prior slide?
Yes, sir.
Is that built into the system that you're only getting these things, or is that a filter that can be removed? I'm trying to figure out how safe that is.
For the license plate or for facial?
Say facial recognition, is that something that's just blocked out and we can't unfilter it and see?
We can't. Our only access is to the license plates only. The vehicle color, if it had a sticker on the side of the car, it would recognize that, but it can't see inside the vehicle.
Okay.
The camera itself.
I'm just trying to be clear.
Yes, sir.
Because I've got questions on this. It's not a filter that can be removed. It's part of what we record.
I'm going to tell you from our access, mayor and council member, we cannot have that filter. We cannot remove that. We don't have access. We neither would we ask for that access.
Okay.
Could it exist? I can't guarantee 100% it doesn't exist. But as far as that camera, it only captures the license plate. It cannot see inside the vehicle.
Okay, and as far as sharing with other cities that may not share our values, can they unfilter it?
No, sir.
I'd like to know this question.
No, so they can only, what we have access to through our cameras.
Okay, thank you.
Because one of the agencies we utilize, because we have a detective assigned, is U.S. Marshals. So when we review our own audits, we look to see who's looking at our data. I estimate 50 to 60% of it is our U.S. Marshal detective, because he's searching our database and other marshals are searching our database. So we do know who is searching our database.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. How our data is protected, law enforcement only. There's only a 30-day retention for license plate reads. It's encrypted storage. It's also dual authentication for anyone who has access to it through the Buckeye Police Department. Every search is logged. Role-based access, so our records clerks are not allowed to search the database, only law enforcement officers, detectives. We have best practice policies and procedures, and of course, training. I placed that open source data brokers in the bottom there. That's something I could probably spend another hour or two talking about. But so when the law enforcement, Buckeye Police Department, we have safeguards, guardrails, and we make sure that the privacy of our citizens is protected. Open source data brokers, we have access to. What that has to deal with is rewards cards, Fry's shopping card, the VIP card, any type of data broker like that. Any information that is available. So any rewards cards, I just lost my train of thought, but any rewards cards. So what open source data has to do is I just lost my train of thought. I may come back to it. I apologize.
Basically, they can sell their information to anybody they want.
There's zero regulation over that. So tow truck drivers, any shopping center, anytime you click activate on when you're searching the internet and you say yes to cookies on there, they can track what you're looking for. They can track where you eat. Any restaurant that you go to, if you sign up for the rewards cards, all that information is sold to data brokers. And unfortunately, there is no regulation over that. So when there's concerns about law enforcement and how we protect, especially the Buckeye Police Department, our research is audited, logged, and detailed. So we don't search unless it's law enforcement related. Unless there's a law enforcement missing person or criminal justice reason. Again, talk about law enforcement only. We have policies and procedures, no random searches, supervisor oversight. We have our own annual audits, and none of our data is for sale. The data brokers, they sell your data. So anytime you sign up for a rewards card, you go get your card down at the service station. Carfax sells your information. All your information and everything you do online is sold. Information security, again, I'm repeating some of this on purpose to show you the details and the safeguards that we have at place. Every search is logged. Any policy violations will be investigated and disciplined up to termination. Community concerns. These cameras are only in public spaces, targeted searches only. We do not track lawful activity. We do not search unless it's law enforcement related, and our data is not for sale, unlike the data brokers. So any of your reward cards, anytime you walk into a grocery store, you're pretty much being tracked. And anytime you sign up for a restaurant, you're being tracked and your data is being sold. So our community concerns is, are our license plate reader cameras conducting surveillance? Well, if you define surveillance as active, systematic, close observation of persons, places, or vehicles to gather information, document evidence, prevent crimes, or identify suspects, that's what we use our cameras for. It's only for criminal justice reasons only. Our data collection, as you can see in that vehicle right there, there's no facial recognition. There's no live tracking of people, and our data is not shared. So this is a recent court case out of Division III, Washington Court of Appeals. It talks about what's the public expectation of privacy. Image of a license plate on a public roadway is not the kind of surveillance that the Fourth Amendment prohibits, because we are not actually surveilling anybody. This vehicle here was from a success story. We had someone disappear. She was 73 years old. She did not take her phone, so we couldn't track her. Her family reported her missing. We entered her license plate into the flock system as a missing and endangered person. She was found out in Scottsdale the same day, and so she was recovered. She was suffering from she had some medical conditions, and she needed some help. Her family didn't know where she was, and there was no way for us to find her because she didn't have her cell phone, so there was no way to track her. Any questions? I have some success stories on the end, but I wanted to see if we had any questions or concerns I may be able to help you with.
On the pixelated piece that you showed on there, is that just a geofence, so there's no, it never takes any videos of that, or does it take the video of that and then pixelate it?
It's pixelated. We set that up with our own IT department. We do that on purpose, so we're not looking into someone's backyard.
So that the camera doesn't do itself based off of geofencing, is what I'm asking.
No, we set that up ourselves.
Okay.
Yes, sir, us and our IT department.
So it's never actual recording, you go back and image back over, it just never exists?
I
because you
can't say
don't
never,
record
I'm not an IT expert, Councilman, but right now, that's how we see it. We'd have to filter it out. We have no reason to.
And like you said, it's only in public areas, other than, capture those like that backyard, but it's, so there's no expectation of privacy in the majority of places.
That's right.
So is that automated or is it a manual process to pixelate all of that?
It's programmed into
So
the feed.
As the camera moves over somebody's backyard, it automatically does that?
Yes, sir. Especially that camera. That one's at 237.
When you get a hit on a license plate, how far or how wide of an area are they feeding that information out nowadays? In other words, is that same license plate on a vehicle, let's say a stolen vehicle, do they have that in California? Do they have, is that NCIS? I guess is what I'm asking. How wide does that go? Will you get a hit on a stolen car in Montana if it's down here? Or will you get a hit on one from Arkansas? Or is it strictly from the state of Arizona? How wide of an area is this covering?
So depending on who enters it into the system, NCIC. So we would get a hit, and then our dispatch center would confirm the hit, that it's either a stolen vehicle or a missing person from another state. And so it goes nationwide, depending on the hit. Also, we can go back in time and research, because sometimes what will happen, especially with missing people, people suffering from dementia or Alzheimer's, they'll disappear and they'll be gone for a few hours. So we can go back in time and track to see if the cameras have picked up any type of hits on that vehicle. It's called a delay hit. So in the past, when Chief Buckeye and I were officers, a delayed hit, there was no way to track it in real time. So what the cameras allow us to do is track missing people in real time. And so if I was to disappear and my family was looking for me, and I've been gone 3 or 4 days before they reported it, I could be across the country. There was no way for anyone to know unless an officer had ran the plate. But with the cameras in place, and the cameras help, basically it's a force multiplier for officers and public safety. They can tell that I'm a missing person and that I was in California instead of Arizona. So they can go, but those delayed hits didn't exist until this technology came about 5 years ago.
And if I come into the city with a stolen automobile and you get a hit on my license plate, how long does it take before you can put that out? I mean, does it give you an instant hit, or does it take 5 minutes for it to go through the system to find it?
It's on average, my experience, when I monitor the radio, it's about 2 seconds.
Okay.
We've had officers driving down the road next to Walmart, and a missing person would be right next to them, and then get the hit. The officer's alerted, dispatchers are alerted, they confirm the information. And in fact, I can still remember the officer saying, well, yeah, the vehicle's right next to me, and it was someone who was suffering from a medical condition that needed to be found and provided medical attention.
Thanks, Chief.
Any other questions from council?
Good job.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I have more slides, if you have more time.
Let's just hammer it again home for everybody, because every time this comes up, I look at this as it's a pretty easy conversation. No data can or is sold.
Correct.
None. There is no facial recognition. I guess unless somebody had their face right down by the picture that you showed, looking out the back of the car.
It's the missing person in the car.
Yeah, maybe then it would be, but there's not, there isn't, we're not doing facial recognition. The camera is targeted on the license plate, and that's what is pinging in all of this.
Yes, sir, that's all that's pinging. There is no facial recognition involved in this.
Okay. No profiling that's happening whatsoever.
Mayor, that's correct, there isn't any profile.
And then we're not tracking, aside from tracking the instances you said, the ability to see folks that have either an Amber Alert or a Silver Alert or some of those things, then those license plates ping on the system, and we're able to track those folks around. But that is the extent of, or a crime vehicle or something along those lines.
Mayor, yes, sir, that's all right. Yeah,
Okay.
there's no criminal justice or law enforcement reason for us to pay attention to anybody else who's law abiding. It's just for vehicles that have been entered or license plates that have been entered into the system that either a missing person or they're wanted in some type of crime. Lead, a suspect, those are the only searches that were actually notified. So although we capture all the data in the license plates, unless it's criminal justice or law enforcement related, we're not notified, neither do we search those records. We never pay attention to who's coming or going unless there's a law enforcement, criminal justice reason.
And this is specific to Buckeye. There's other agencies that may be doing things slightly different, other states potentially that are doing things slightly different. We go to maybe national conferences or something like that, and there's some widely varying perspectives on flock and LPRs out and about. But what you've laid out here is specific to Buckeye.
Yes, Mayor and Council, specific to Buckeye is exactly how we utilize the technology. Our number one concern is public safety, right along with the privacy of our citizens. There's no reason for us to be researching records or movement. We only research movement unless it's related to a crime or a missing person or an endangered person.
Okay. I think that's all we have, Chief. I sure appreciate you bringing this forward. I know sometimes someone will pop something on the social media channel, and then there's just a run of comments down below that may or may not be familiar with how we do things here in the city of Buckeye. And so I appreciate you bringing this forward and educating us and our public on how we handle LPRs in the city.
Well, thank you, Mayor. We won't have time to go over it now, but there are other slides of success stories where we've actually helped people. We use it for best reasons for our citizens. We do not sell the data. It's not for sale. But it's been highly effective, especially for a city that's the size of Buckeye. We're only going to get bigger.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. Item number 3, with nothing else on the agenda, we are adjourned.